The people who are struggling are really fighting with the reality of the situation.
I think if one thing this pandemic has done is force people to be way more authentic and raw and real, it is creating more connection. This is, I see happening more and more and more and more. I've seen some people connect in ways they've never connected. So do you see that happening as well, which is we're deepening our external relationships in ways we never have before? And is that in some cases a way to replace my relationship at home? In other words, I'm stressed at home with my significant other and my kids, and I get, to use your words earlier, Nina, I get rewarded in other ways, and therefore I'm now finding other ways to connect with people. So are we seeing that? Are we seeing people connect in different ways and relationships deepen because of this?
I think so. I mean, I would say, reflecting in my own life too, like I think about one of my closest friends. We're not really phone people, we don't talk on the phone, but now nobody's going out. Everybody's lonely. So we're spending more time having these like girls' nights where we connect over Zoom and we chat. And there's something really great about that, right? So nurturing relationships in a different way than we usually would. And even I think about like, my husband with his work, something he's been doing is like dressing up kind of funny for some of his Zoom calls, right? And like just trying to entertain people. And I think it allows you to see a different side of the people that you work with or that you normally have in your life, which just brings a bit of levity, I think, to the situation that's really needed. And absolutely that would filter through to the relationships we have at home, right? If you feel like you're able to get a little bit of separation and connect to that real self that's inside that your friends see and your work colleagues see, it helps big time.
The people who are struggling are really fighting with the reality of the situation. So we talk a lot in our work with people, when we fight with pain, when we resist pain, so the pain of what we're experiencing right now, we create suffering for ourselves, right? So we create that unnecessary sort of amount of distress. When we can accept the pain or the reality of the situation, and accepting doesn't mean that we like or agree with it, it actually opens ourselves up to a little bit more mental freedom, right? So showing our authentic self, showing that life isn't really perfect behind the scenes. There's a lot of people that we work with who struggle with perfectionism that are trying to maintain such structure and order to their days, and it's failing miserably and they're feeling more distressed about it. So being able to communicate that to other people and show one's authentic self is a great way of trying to accept the situation, even if we don't like it.
So I heard you talking a little bit about boundaries there, which is the importance of setting some limits or setting some boundaries, not just personally, but professionally as well. So is that a really important thing to be doing right now, which is setting some of those boundaries with people?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're seeing that across the board. I think for everybody, we need to create various boundaries, right? So there's physical boundaries that we're creating, right? With social distancing, we can't get very close to people. There's emotional boundaries, right? So how much am I disclosing to certain people about the things that are going on in my life? There's boundaries related to the time and space we're devoting to others in our household, right? So cultivating time where I can be alone and also time when I can be with the rest of the family or with my partner and enjoy that time with one another. When there's an imbalance in those boundaries or where those boundaries feel off in terms of what we need, then things like resentment can build, frustration can build, irritation, anxiety, and that's sort of, a perfect kind of melting pot for conflict.
Exactly. And I think one of the things to add to that too is this idea that right now a lot of our boundaries have to change. So they're not the same as they were before. And the difficulty that can arise from that is that when you change the rules of the game, people tend to react, right? So right now, if you have to give more or less of yourself than you usually would to your partner, and you just change that without talking about it, you can expect that there will be some arguments. And same thing with kids, right? I think that's huge now is they see you working from home and they're like, well, you're home. Like, can't we hang out? And you're like, no. And then they freak out, right? And so you have to really say, this is what my new boundary is going to be. This is the time period that I expect it to last. And if you communicate that, things will be so much smoother. Again, communication, right? It's kind of annoying to say the same thing, but it's key.
But in life, it's the simplest things that make the biggest difference. And again, it's not rocket science to go to your significant other, right? Technically the person you love, and say, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I need, here's what I'm asking for, and here's what I'm willing to do for that, and have that conversation often, like far and few between, like have that conversation.
What's missing for a lot of people is the chance to have fun and enjoy time with one another. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. One is that, for a lot of us, we're working from home. And so we're trying to navigate all those roles and responsibilities. We tend to lose sight of as time goes on, sort of cultivating that sense of connectedness and fun and enjoyment in things that are not work or not school time with our kids. So at the beginning, I think everyone was all rearing and ready to go. Well, I'm going to create these great meals and we're going to do all these board game nights and things like that. And that became old very soon, right?
Right.
People were like, I've had enough of this and I can't do it anymore. And so now it's like, no, what can we actually do together that's really enjoyable? And maybe that's shifted from before this time, right? It's going to be a different kind of enjoyable reality for us all. But having fun, being able to connect with one another, I think is really important. So it might be the Zoom calls with your friends, or like the, games nights that you have online, or it might be going on a really long hike with your partner and kids. And maybe hiking wasn't something you even enjoyed before all of this happened, right?
Right. And so the idea of other things that will promote our relationship include like having fun with stuff. I was talking to a couple last week and they were telling me that they've been doing these theme nights where, they think about their favorite items from a restaurant that they would typically go to, and they create that menu at home and they dress up as if they're going out there. And another couple was telling me that they did like a Grease movie theme night where they dressed up as Sandy and Danny, and then they made like fair food and played all the music. And,
Cool.
it's not necessarily, we certainly are seeing like dangerous things that are popping up in relationships like we spoke about earlier, but a lot of it too has to do with not nurturing our relationships in an appropriate and balanced way. And I think if we can do that, we can actually protect against some of those dangers that are popping up a little bit more.
Yeah, it was the best thing that you said, which is like the importance of nurturing our relationships, and not just because we're in this crisis pandemic situation, stress. Like this is just advice that we've heard from, in some cases, our grandparents, which is don't go to
Yeah.
sleep angry, and like forgive, and don't forget to date, and don't forget to fall in love again. And it's all this real, again, simple exercises that we need to practice, which in some cases was going to be my last question for today, but I'll loop it in now, which are, what are some of the other practices we can be taking on in our relationships, not with our friends, with our children, with our families?
I like the idea of practicing gratitude. And I mean, I think as cliche as that might sound, there is something really beneficial at a time like this in finding something you're grateful for about each and every one of your relationships. And that doesn't devalue all the things that you're frustrated with. So in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, we talk a lot about dialectics. So this idea that two seemingly opposing things can be true at the same time. So the idea that I can be really frustrated at my partner right now, and I can be super grateful that they brought me lunch to my work desk, right? So there are these things that we can kind of capture that are things we're especially grateful or appreciative of in all of our relationships actually right now.
Hey, I'm Greg Witz. Thanks so much for coming and checking out the video. If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. So I'd highly suggest that you click this video over here. And don't forget to subscribe and share.